Today, of course, is President's Day, which falls between the birthdays of probably the two most influential presidents in our nation's history, George Washington and Abraham Lincoln. And Lincoln himself actually is an interesting topic for the Gem State. He's got quite a unique relationship with Idaho. Here to tell us more about it is a Lincoln scholar, Dave Leroy. Thanks so much for starting your President's Day off with us, Dave.
You're very welcome. Happy
We appreciate
President's
it.
Day.
Thank you. Well, first off, I guess the most interesting tie that Idaho would have with Lincoln is, correct me if I'm wrong, the territory was actually established during his presidency. Is that correct?
Absolutely. 149 years ago on March the 4th.
So coming up.
We were signed into law by a stroke of Lincoln's hand. He stayed at the Capitol building until about 4:30 in the morning after the last night of the Congress. They'd passed a bill. He wanted to sign it immediately. He stayed there and signed it.
And so at that point, then obviously big history in the making to become a territory and later a state and everything in the history of Idaho. What other ties then does President Lincoln have to Idaho? Had he ever been here?
Well, he never was here, but in 1849 as a defeated congressman, he sought a position from the president to be appointed as governor of Oregon Territory, which then would have included Idaho. So he wanted to come out this way. A week after he signed the bill into existence, he appointed a lot of his friends to come out here and be our early territorial officers. So there are a lot of direct ties to Lincoln, including on the last night of his life, he invited the governor of Idaho Territory and his wife, Mrs. Wallace, to go to the Ford's Theater with them that night. They couldn't go. Lincoln was, though he wanted them, Mrs. Wallace was ill.
Which turned out perhaps fortunate for them, of course, knowing the fate of the president that night then.
Well, I always say perhaps the governor of Idaho could have interrupted the assassination.
True, also true. One of those things we'll never know how it could have played out differently. Now, I want to make sure we get to the items that you brought because you have some very historical items relating not just to Lincoln, but also, as we said, because we're celebrating Washington's birthday as well today, items from George Washington. So go ahead and tell us a little bit about some of the significance of these items.
The torch I brought was designed to be carried in a campaign parade. It would be mounted on a post. There would be wicks and the body would be filled with kerosene. They would light it and parade up and down Main Street with a lit torch.
Lighting the way with the eagle.
Hooting and hollering for Lincoln in 1860.
Awesome.
This is a Lincoln campaign ribbon. Supporters would have tied those to their lapels or pinned them to their lapels. This one is from the 1860 race, and you can see it's a beardless Lincoln. He grew a beard only after the campaign, before he was inaugurated.
And this next one kind of reminds me of the movie National Treasure, if you've ever seen it. This one is a George Washington memento.
This is a national treasure, in effect. This is one of the small brass buttons that George Washington supporters would have worn at his inauguration in New York City in 1789. It's round with the initials GW in it. On the bottom of the tag,
Amazing.
It says, "Long live the President."
Wow.
Almost like long live the king.
Yeah,
right.
Interesting for that time period.
The final item is a document representing the authority to pay a man named George Gibson for being one of the presidential electors who voted for Lincoln in the first presidential election as a member of the Electoral College. He was to be paid 4 pounds and some shillings for his expenses in voting for President Washington.
Wow, interesting there. And it's just so amazing the ties that our presidents have, of course, to this country, and then even to hear some of those things about the ties that Lincoln had here directly to Idaho. We appreciate you bringing in these wonderful pieces of history as well, and you know, getting us a little bit of information to start off our President's Day. So thanks so much for being with us, Dave.